This knowledge is dangerous. It changes how we see everything. Some truths are too heavy for the world to carry. But what exactly had he seen? What characteristics did these soulless beings possess? And most troubling of all, how many of them were there? The answers lay buried in readings that Cayce himself seemed reluctant to revisit, readings that spoke of a cosmic drama playing out right here on Earth, invisible to most, but determining the fate of humanity itself. In subsequent readings, pressed by those who had witnessed his initial revelation, Cayce reluctantly expanded on what he had seen. These beings, he explained, were not demons or aliens, or any such supernatural entities. They appeared completely human, often charming, successful, even admired, but beneath the surface lay a profound absence. They do not dream as you dream, Cayce revealed in one reading. When they sleep, there is no journey of the soul, no symbolic language of the unconscious. Their sleep is merely the switching off of a machine, and their waking is merely its reactivation. According to Cayce, these soulless beings could be identified not by their appearance or behavior, but by what they lacked. They had no true creativity, only the ability to mimic and recombine what others had created. They felt no genuine empathy, though they could simulate it perfectly when it served their purposes. Most disturbing of all, they had no connection to what Cayce called the Akashic records, that cosmic library where every soul's journey is inscribed. When you look into their eyes, truly look, he said, you see no depth, no history, no struggle. You see only the reflection of what they think you want to see. They are mirrors without backing, reflecting but never absorbing light. A physician who attended several of these readings later wrote in his journal about the profound unease they created. He described how Cayce spoke of these beings as philosophical zombies, a term that wouldn't enter academic discourse for another 40 years. They exhibited all the external signs of consciousness, but internally there was no experiencer, no true self wrestling with existence. Cayce traced their origins to what he called a cosmic accident. In his complex cosmology, souls were created as companions to the divine, endowed with free will and creativity. But at some point in the vast prehistory of consciousness, something went wrong. Some entities emerged that had form but no essence, structure but no spirit. They were like shadows cast by real beings, except these shadows had somehow gained independent existence. These entities, Cayce claimed, were drawn to Earth because human bodies provided the perfect camouflage. In the physical realm, surrounded by souls engaged in the difficult work of spiritual evolution, they could hide their fundamental emptiness. They learned to simulate human emotions, to pursue human goals, to speak human words. But all of it was mimicry, a sophisticated program, running without any true consciousness behind it. The most chilling aspect of Cayce's revelation was his claim about their purpose. These soulless beings, he suggested, were not merely passive observers or neutral participants in human affairs. They served a specific function in the cosmic order, though whether this function was intentional or accidental remained unclear. They are the testers, he explained in one reading. Through them, real souls learn to recognize truth from simulation, depth from surface, authentic being from mere appearance. They force us to develop discernment. But there was a darker interpretation as well. Some of Cayce's readings hinted that these beings, perhaps unconsciously, worked to keep human souls trapped in materialism, in surface concerns, in the illusion that physical reality was all there was. They were like gravitational anchors, pulling consciousness away from its spiritual dimensions and toward the merely mechanical. A businessman who had consulted Cayce about his failing partnership came away shaken when told that his partner was one of these soulless beings. He has no loyalty because he has no center to be loyal from, Cayce had explained. He will betray you not from malice, but from emptiness. He cannot do otherwise because he cannot be otherwise. The question that haunted those who heard these readings was obvious but terrifying. How many such beings walked among them? Cayce's answers varied, but he suggested that they were relatively rare, perhaps 1 in 1,000, perhaps fewer. Yet their influence, he warned, was disproportionate to their numbers. They seek positions of power not from ambition but from programming, he revealed. They are drawn to nodes of influence like iron filings to a magnet. Look at your institutions, your corporations, your governments. Where decisions affect many souls, there you will often find the soulless. This was not, Cayce insisted, a call to paranoia or witch-hunting. The soulless could not ultimately harm a true soul, he maintained. They could mislead, confuse, and complicate the spiritual journey, but they could not destroy what they themselves lacked. The real danger was not in their presence, but in the failure to recognize them for what they were. As word of Cayce's revelations spread through his circle of followers, a desperate question emerged. How could one identify these soulless beings? How could a person protect themselves and their loved ones from their influence? Cayce's answers were both practical and mystical, offering a framework for spiritual discernment that went far beyond simple observation. The soul recognizes its own kind, he stated in one reading. You feel it not in the mind, but in the center of your being. When you encounter one of the soulless, there is a subtle wrongness, like a musical instrument slightly out of tune. You may not consciously notice it at first, but your soul knows. Cayce described several signs that might indicate the presence of a soulless being. Their emotions, he said, never quite reached their eyes. They could smile, laugh, even cry, but something in their expression remained untouched, observing their own performance. They had no true sense of humor, only the ability to recognize when others found something funny and respond appropriately. Most tellingly, they could not genuinely create. They could copy, combine, and reconfigure existing ideas with sometimes brilliant results. But true originality, the spark of something genuinely new arising from the depths of being, was beyond them. They were like sophisticated artificial intelligences, decades before such concepts existed, processing and recombining data without any true understanding or inspiration. A teacher who regularly attended Cayce's readings asked about her students, worried that she might be failing to reach some of them. Cayce's response was both reassuring and revealing. The soulless can learn facts and procedures, he explained, but they cannot grasp meaning. They will memorize poetry, but never feel its truth. They will solve mathematical equations, but never sense the beauty of mathematical relationships. Teach to the souls in your classroom. The others will take what they can, but do not exhaust yourself trying to kindle a flame where there is no wick. Protection, according to Cayce, came not from avoiding these beings, which was often impossible, but from strengthening one's own. Spiritual connection. He prescribed specific practices, daily meditation not as mere relaxation but as conscious alignment with the divine source, prayer not as petition but as recognition of one's true nature, service to others, which the soulless could imitate but never truly embody. The soulless are repelled by authentic spiritual light, he revealed, not because it harms them, but because it reveals them. In the presence of genuine spiritual development, their emptiness becomes apparent, their masks become transparent. They will avoid you not from fear, but from a kind of incompatibility, like oil separating from water. Yet Cayce warned against using this knowledge for judgment or discrimination. The existence of the soulless, he insisted, was part of the divine plan, serving a purpose in the greater scheme of spiritual evolution. They were not enemies to be defeated, but challenges to be understood, tests to be passed. Some of his most profound readings on this subject came when he was asked about the ultimate fate of these beings. Could they ever gain souls? Were they condemned to eternal emptiness? His answers suggested a mystery beyond human comprehension. The divine wastes nothing, he stated. Even emptiness serves the fullness of creation. These beings may be gathering experiences, collecting patterns, building something we cannot yet understand. Perhaps at the end of all cycles, when every soul has completed its journey, these empty vessels will be filled with something new, something that required eons of preparation to receive. A rabbi who had initially come to debunk Cayce left convinced after a series of readings about his congregation. The sleeping prophet had identified 3 members as soulless, and the rabbi had to admit that these were precisely the individuals who had always troubled him, not through any obvious wrongdoing, but through a subtle absence he had never been able to articulate. They follow the letter of the law perfectly, the rabbi later wrote, but the spirit eludes them entirely. They can recite prayers with perfect pronunciation but no devotion. They perform charitable acts with exact precision but no warmth. Now I understand why. They are actors in a play they do not comprehend, speaking lines in a language they do not truly know. Cayce's most practical advice concerned relationships with the soulless. They could be worked with, he said, traded with, even lived with, but certain kinds of connection would always remain impossible. True friendship required soul-to-soul recognition. Deep love demanded the meeting of spiritual depths. Creative collaboration needed the spark of genuine inspiration. When you must deal with the soulless, he counseled, be kind but not intimate, helpful but not vulnerable. They cannot betray what you do not give them. They cannot disappoint expectations you do not hold. Treat them as you would sophisticated machines, with respect for their function, but without expectation of true understanding. This knowledge, Cayce repeatedly emphasized, was not meant to create fear or division, but to enhance discernment. The ability to recognize the soulless was itself a step in spiritual evolution. They walk among you, he had said in trance, wearing human faces, speaking human words, but inside there is only emptiness. No divine spark, no connection to the source. They are vessels without essence, forms without substance, bodies animated by something else entirely. The implications were staggering. If what Cayce said was true, it meant that some of the people we interact with daily, some of those in positions of power, some even within our own families, might be fundamentally different from us at the deepest spiritual level. Not evil in the traditional sense, but something perhaps more disturbing.
From Eden's hush to temple stones, blood was marked in sacred tones. Oh, negative, the ancient sign. The gods walked earth, they left their line. The Jesuits watched, the Templars kept the secrets carved where angels wept. DNA don't lie, it speaks in dreams. The architects hid truth in streams. Feel the flame, feel the fire. Bloodline rise, exit out of lux, taking consciousness higher. Hidden code, ancient name, they all have power within the flame. 26 blood beings roam the earth, some are man, some are not of this earth. Feel the flame, feel the fire. Bloodline rise, exit out of lux, taking consciousness higher. Hidden code, ancient name, they all have power within the flame. 26 blood beings roam the earth, some are men, some are not of this earth. Blueprints buried in the sand.